Well, all of us would like to know who the Antichrist is, and all of us would like to know when the end will be, and all of us would like to know when Jesus is coming back. And so that's why we're doing this project. Thought it'd be kind of fun to do, but also maybe it'll something you can remember in the future. So today we're going to talk about how to know who the Antichrist is. Just because I'm requiring you to do all of these quizzes doesn't mean I'm the Antichrist. Maybe decide after you go through this if I am or not. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you. And there we go. And we'll just start right away. In verse 15 of Matthew chapter 24, Jesus said, "You will see the awful horror of which the prophet Daniel spoke. It will be standing in the holy place." Note to the reader, understand what this means. Now, they translate that a little funny because they say it will be standing. Literally in the Greek, it can be he will be standing or it will be standing. It can be either one. And so it's a little bit confusing when it says it. So keep that in mind. It may not be it. Now, he says that this is something that was spoken of by the prophet Daniel. So I think we need to go and find where Daniel talks about this. He actually talks about it in 3 different places. We're going to look at 2 of those. The first one is Daniel 9:27. And this tells us some pretty interesting information. That ruler will have a firm agreement with many people for 7 years. And when half this time is passed, he will put an end to sacrifice and offerings. The awful horror will be placed in the highest point of the temple and will remain there until the one who put it there meets the end which God has prepared for him. Oh, there's a lot of information there. It says that ruler will have a firm agreement with many people, and it's for 7 years. But he's going to break his agreement. He's going to break his promises, and what he's going to do is he's going to put an end to sacrifices and offering. When will that happen? Well, when half this time is passed. Half of what time? Well, 7 years. So let's see, 7 divided by 2, 1/2 of 7 years would be 3.5 years. So after 3.5 years, this ruler who has made this firm agreement, this treaty, political treaty with many people, he's going to break his treaty. He's going to put an end to sacrifices and offerings. Okay? So I know a little bit. That's interesting. And let's see if I can sneak in here. Yes, I can. From the time the daily sacrifices are stopped, that is from the time of the awful horror, 1,290 days will pass. Now, this is the second half of that 7 years. The first half of the 7 years, the first half of the 7 years, they're doing daily sacrifices. But then in the middle of those 7 years, after 3.5 years, this ruler will stop the daily sacrifices. That is from the time of the awful horror. So something is going to happen. This person who is this ruler is going to stop sacrifices after he's made a treaty, a political treaty with the many, and it's almost definitely, every scholar agrees, it's with Israel. And so this person, this ruler, who's not a Jew, I don't think, no indication that he is going to make a treaty with Israel, and that treaty is something to do with sacrifices. Well, they can't really do sacrifices now because there's no temple now, because there's a Dome of the Rock is in the place where the temple could be, and so there is no temple. So what's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be some kind of a treaty that's going to allow the Jews to start sacrifices, and apparently they'll be able to build a new temple. It sounds like it. So you're not going to know who the Antichrist is this week because there's no temple in Jerusalem. And the way you're going to know who the Antichrist is he's going to negotiate a treaty with Israel that has something to do with allowing them to do sacrifices again. And if those sacrifices can't happen because the temple doesn't exist, it sounds to me probably, not definitely, but like 92.793% sure that the treaty is going to not only allow sacrifices to go on and offerings to go on, but that there would be a temple to do it in, because you just can't have sacrifices without the temple. Jews have not been doing sacrifices for 2,000 years because their temple, almost 2,000 years, because their temple was destroyed. AD 70 years after Jesus was born, and the Romans destroyed the temple. So they haven't been able to do these sacrifices. They did some unbiblical sacrifices in Alexandria, Egypt, but we don't look at that because that's not really right what they did. So now we're in this situation where sounds to me like there's a person, a ruler, and let's see what it says in Daniel 9 about this ruler. That ruler will have a firm agreement with many people for 7 years. And when half this time has passed, okay, so 1/2 of 7 is 3.5. After 3.5 years, he will put an end to sacrifices and offerings. Oh, okay. The awful horror will be placed in the highest point of the temple and will remain there until the one who put it there meets the end which God has prepared for him, which you can read about, by the way, in the book of Revelation. I think it's chapter 18 and 19. You read about what's going to happen to this person, this ruler, and it's not nice at all. God's going to win the battle. All right, so here we go. So your simple lesson today, I gave you an easy one. It's all multiple choice. But this simple one you're doing today, so I want you to figure this out for yourself and figure out how can you identify the Antichrist. And I have not made a temple. I have not made a treaty with Israel so they can make a temple. I am not the Antichrist. I am not planning to do that, and therefore I can't be the Antichrist. Donald Trump has not done that. He can't be the Antichrist. Joe Biden has not done that. He can't be the Antichrist. None of the people we know can be the Antichrist. They might be, but in order for us to know that they are, they've got to make a firm, what does it say? A firm agreement with many people for 7 years. And that agreement has something to do with sacrifices and offerings. So there's going to be some kind of a treaty with Israel, allowing Israel to rebuild their temple and start sacrifices and offerings. They have everything ready for it. But there's no treaty. And when that treaty happens, well, the person who makes that treaty happen, that's your Antichrist. And it's going to be a 7-year treaty. Well, yeah, 7-year treaty. 3.5 years into it, the Antichrist is going to put an end to sacrifices and offering. Oh, okay. So now we know what's going on. And when people say, oh, this person's the Antichrist, Bill Gates is the Antichrist. Bill Gates has not negotiated with Israel a treaty so that they can rebuild their temple and start sacrifices and offerings. Bill Gates didn't do that. He may have a chip that's going to go in your head. Yeah, that's not good. And it may be that Bill Gates has lots and lots of money, even more money than I do. But Bill Gates hasn't negotiated that treaty with Israel. I don't think Bill Gates can be the Antichrist. I don't think Bill Gates can be the Antichrist because the only thing we know for certain about the Antichrist, as far as identifying who it is he's going to negotiate a treaty with Israel for 7 years, and halfway through, he is going to break the treaty. Okay? So there you go. This is a guaranteed way of knowing who is and who is not the Antichrist. So God bless you. Have a good